December 30th, 2014, from LP Field in Nashville, Tennessee. It was the Music City Bowl between the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the LSU Tigers. The Irish would get the ball first, and they would take over on their own 34 after the kickoff. And they would bring the ball to midfield and into Louisiana territory. And on 3rd and 4 from the LSU 12, Malik Zaire hit William Fuller for a 12-yard touchdown pass that made it 7-0 Notre Dame over LSU. So now the Tigers would take over on their own 27 after the kickoff with about 7 minutes left still in the first. They would go 3 and out on their first possession and punt from the 33. So now the Irish would take over on their own 18 after the punt with about 5.5 minutes left in the first quarter. And on 1st and 10 from the 18, Malik Zaire ran 26 yards for the first down to the Notre Dame 44. And then CJ Prosise ran 27 yards into Louisiana state territory to the 29-yard line for the first down. They were then faced with a 4th and 1. They elected to go for it. They're on the 20-yard line right there on the edge of the red zone. Malik Zaire tried to get it, and he was dropped for a 4-yard loss. And so now the Irish turned the ball over on downs, and the Tigers would take over on their own 24 with a little less than 3 minutes still left in the first. Their victory was a 2nd and 5 from the 29, and Darrell Williams ran 13 yards for the first down to the LSU 42. Then on 2nd and 7 from the 45, Tavin Durrell ran 24 yards for the first down in Notre Dame territory at the 31. Leonard Fournette then ran 18 yards all the way into the red zone for the first down at the Notre Dame 13. He then ran for another 5 yards, and on 3rd and 5 from the 8, Leonard Fournette 8-yard touchdown run tied this game up at 7 apiece between the Tigers and the Irish. So now Notre Dame would take over on their own 25 after the kickoff with just seconds left in the first quarter. They gave it to Tarean Folston. He ran 7 yards to the 32 and brought the first quarter to a close. So after 1 quarter of play, the score was Notre Dame 7, LSU 7. So now to start the second quarter, the Irish had the ball on their own 32. It was 2nd and 3. Folston picked up the first down with a 3-yard run. And then on 2nd and 10 from the 35, Folston picked up 11 and a first down at the 46. They were then faced with a 3rd and 8 from the 48, and Everett Golson hit Chris Brown for the 29-yard reception that made it a first down in Louisiana state territory at the 23. They were then faced with a 3rd and 2 from the 15, and Malik Zaire ran 8 yards for the first down to make it 1st and goal on the 7. They then gave it back to Malik Zaire. He ran it into the end zone for the 7-yard touchdown run to give the Irish back the lead with the score now Notre Dame 14, LSU 7. So now on the kickoff after the touchdown, Leonard Fournette ran it back 100 yards for the touchdown to tie this game back up, now at 14 apiece between the Irish and the Tigers. So now Notre Dame would take over on their own 41 after the kickoff. There was a penalty, offsides on the defense. So Notre Dame would have the ball on their own 41. They would get it down into LSU territory. They were then faced with a 2nd and goal on the LSU 6. And they gave it to Folston, and he punched it in for the 6-yard touchdown, and the Irish took back the lead with the score Notre Dame 21, LSU 14. So now the Tigers would take over with about 6 minutes left in the first half. They had on their own 25 after the kickoff. They would bring the ball across midfield and all the way into Notre Dame territory, into the red zone, all the way down to the 3-yard line. It was 3rd and goal from the 3. Jennings went to Diarse, and he picked up a yard. So now it was 4th and goal on the 2, and instead of going for the chip shot, they elected to go for it. They handed it off to Crapthorpe, and he picked up a yard, but he was shy of the end zone as it was 4th and goal. He didn't get it in, and so they turned the ball over on downs on the second to last play in the first half. So now Notre Dame would just give it to Zaire. He ran the clock out, and we went to halftime. So the score at halftime, Notre Dame 21, LSU 14, as the Tigers failed to get some points right there when they were just 3 feet away from the end zone is where their drive ended, their last drive of the first half. But in the second half, LSU would get the opening kickoff of the second half. They had the ball on their own 25 after the kickoff, and John Diarse caught a 75-yard touchdown pass from Anthony Jennings, and it was now tied back up, this time at 21 apiece between the Tigers and the Irish. So now Notre Dame would take over on their own 25 after the kickoff, but after 8 plays, they would end up punting from the LSU 40. So now LSU would get the ball backed up against their own end zone on their own 9-yard line with about 10.5 left in the third quarter. They would bring the ball to midfield, and they got into Notre Dame territory. It was 2nd and 5 from the 44. Anthony Jennings then got dropped for a yard loss and he fumbled the ball. Sheldon Day recovered it for the Irish. So now Notre Dame would take over on their own 45 with about 7.5 left in the third. They would go 3 and out and end up punting from their own 48. So now LSU would take over on their own 11-yard line with 6.5 minutes left in the third, and they gave it to Leonard Fournette, and he ran it 89 yards for the touchdown. And now the Tigers were in the lead with the score LSU 28, Notre Dame 21. So now the Irish would take over on their own 33 after the kickoff with just a little over 6 minutes still left in the third. And on 2nd and 3 from the 40, Folston picked up 6 yards in the first down at the 46. Then on 2nd and 6 from the 50, they gave it to C.J. Prosise, and he ran it 50 yards for the touchdown. And we're now tied back up, this time at 28 apiece. So now LSU would take over on their own 25 after the kickoff. They would go 3 and out. Jennings got sacked on first down. They weren't able to recover from that, so they ended up punting from their own 17. And now Notre Dame would take over on their own 48 with about 3 minutes left in the third. They would end up going 3 and out as well and punt from their own 45. So now LSU would take over with less than a minute left in the third. They had it on their own 19 after the punt. They were then faced with a 2nd and 4 from the 24, and Tarean Folston picked up 13 yards in the first down at the 37. It brought the third quarter to a close. So after 3 quarters of play, the score was tied up at 28 between Notre Dame and LSU. So now to begin the fourth quarter, the Tigers had the ball on their own 37. Jennings went to Deshaun Smith. He picked up 21 yards in the first down in Notre Dame territory at the 42. Then on 2nd and 3 from the 35, Kenny Hilliard picked up 4 in the first down at the 31. But their drive would stall at the 23, and out would come Trent Dominique to attempt a 40-yard field goal. It was up, and it was blocked. It was blocked by Isaac Rochel-Cole. And so now Notre Dame would take over on their own 33 after the blocked field goal with about 12 minutes left in regulation. This game tied up at 28. They went 3 and out on the possession and punted from the 39. So now LSU would take over on their own 20 with less than 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But after 6 plays, they would end up punting from their own 40. So now Notre Dame would take over after the punt on their own 15 with less than 6 minutes left to play in this fourth quarter. They were faced with a 3rd and 3 from the 23. Malik Zaire picked up 7 of the first down at the 30. Then on 3rd and 1 from the 39, Zaire picked up 3 yards in the first down at the 42. They were then faced with a 3rd and 10 from the 42, and Everett Golson hit Ben Koyak for a 12-yard reception, a first down in LSU territory at the 46. Golson then went to Folston, and he picked up 16 yards in the first down at the LSU 30. Then on 2nd and 2 from the 22, Zaire picked up 8 in the first down at the 14. Zaire then ran for nothing to set up the field goal attempt as time was running down. Notre Dame took a timeout now. Now LSU took a timeout to try to ice the kicker. And with just 4 seconds left on the clock, it was 2nd and 10 from the 14. They brought out Kyle Brindza to attempt a 32-yard field goal. It was up, and it was good. The game winner to put Notre Dame ahead with the final score. Notre Dame 31. LSU 28. So the Irish win the Music Bowl. They improved their record to 8-5. LSU falls to 8-5 on the season. LSU was ranked 23 going into this game, and Notre Dame pulls off the upset in Tennessee, in Nashville, Tennessee. So Notre Dame, Malik Zaire was 12 for 15. He had 96 passing yards and a touchdown. Everett Golson was 6 for 11 with 90 yards passing. Golson had 6 yards off of 1 carry as well, and Zaire had 22 yards off he had 22 carries for 96 yards and a touchdown. So Zaire 96 yards passing, 96 yards rushing, a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown. And for LSU, Anthony Jennings was 7 of 14 with 151 passing yards and a touchdown. Jennings also had 8 yards off of 8 carries. The leading rusher in the game was Leonard Fournette of the LSU Tigers. He had 11 carries for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also returned that kickoff 100 yards for the touchdown. He had 2 kick returns for 121 yards total. Tarean Folston had 4 carries for 61 yards. And the leading receiver was John Diarse. He had 2 receptions for 76 yards and a touchdown. Deshaun Smith had 4 receptions for 66 yards. And for the Irish, William Fuller had 5 receptions for 57 yards and a touchdown. Chris Brown had 4 receptions for 49 yards. CJ Prosise had 3 receptions for 34 yards. So the Irish pulled this one off. Tarean Folston also had 21 carries for 73 yards and 12 yards receiving off of 2 receptions. With lots of points scored, and it looked like it might go to overtime, but on the final play of the game, Kyle Brindza hits that game-winning field goal, and the Irish win the Music City Bowl in exciting fashion. With the final score, Notre Dame 31, LSU 28.